Okay, let's do the Pledge of Allegiance over again. So now we'll start with the approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting dated August 24th. Everybody had a chance to read them? Any additions, corrections, subtractions? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve them.
I will move to approve the minutes of the last board meeting.
I'll second.
It's been properly moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the board meeting August 24th. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Motion passes. We'll move on to the general fund vouchers. 725.72 through 72.638. Wire transfers 49 through 67, and activity fund vouchers 2183 through 2195.
Brent and I looked at them. All look like they're in order, so I'll make that motion.
And I will second.
It's been properly moved and seconded to approve the general fund vouchers as listed. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. We'll move on then to the public comment questions. Is anybody here with a public comment or a question? Go ahead.
At the annual meeting, the public one, motion was made that school board members attend some board things. I know 2 people were just elected in April. The rest of you, could you tell me, because you've been on it for a while, have you attended any of those trainings and what those were?
Say that again, Brent.
Every time when a board member comes on, we go to an indoctrination meeting, you know, that tells you kind of how it's been going and things of that nature.
And that's with the W?
ASB.
Okay.
Yep. We, I think every one of us have done that, haven't we?
Not this year,
No.
but no.
I think I was the only one this year.
Yep.
I've been to a CISA one and
Yep.
that one, so.
Okay.
And so that's one that you've gone to,
Well, then we had the WASB come in and give us a presentation.
Here.
Yep.
but you've not gone to any other one?
Personally, no, I have not.
Okay. And
We-
the rest of you?
In the past, I have, yep.
Yeah. Okay.
That's actually, if you look on agenda item A in new business, 7 in new business, we're going to be talking about that coming
That's
up.
kind of why I wanted to ask the question, knowing that we can't talk at that part. So I wanted to kind of know what you guys have done in the past when we listen to the rest of your conversation.
Okay.
We get an email from the WASB, and it has a whole bunch of things to go and research and look into. And then there's another one that we get sent, legislative updates and such like that. So we're constantly reading those, at least I am.
Any other questions?
Did that answer your question?
Have you attended any besides the training one, the first one?
I haven't been to the state convention yet, but I've been to a couple other ones. Up at CISA.
Okay. Any other questions? I've got a letter that Randy Dean addressed to us, sent it via email. The paper copy will come shortly. To the Board of Education and Chairman Greg Frenchu. I've noticed school board agenda tonight includes a discussion of the motion I made for board members' salary stipulation for continuing board development from WASB workshops. I regret that I can't be there to hear the discussion, as I have a meeting tonight that requires my attendance. Please know that I will press the board by all reasonable means possible for their adherence to this annual meeting resolution, which passed unanimously. I listened to the recording of board comments made at the meeting where this was requested to be made an agenda item. Someone suggested that the special board meeting with the WASB attorney be counted as part of this requirement. I disagree. That was prior to the annual meeting and not covered by this motion at that time. Feel free to contact me if you have any questions. I'm determined to help in any way I can. I appreciate the job you are doing as board chairman during this difficult time, Randy Dean. So that paper copy will follow up too then. And then when we get to that item of business, then we can talk about it more. Any other public comment or questions? Okay, then we'll move on to old business, a construction update. Brad?
We're getting close to not having that on the agenda anymore. The last thing really to do is the sign, the new sign out in front of the building, the posts are there, and Sign Express from Centuria is finishing up the rest of it. Hopefully within the next week or so will be installed. Have you heard anything recently, Chris?
No, I haven't.
They were hoping to have it here before the end of September, so that would be it for construction update. Not a whole lot to do.
Okay. Any other questions, guys? Okay. I'll move on then to the report on the opening of school. Chris?
I can go first. Yeah, I just had a very good start to the school year. From the elementary school perspective, a lot smoother than last year, of course, with the building being done and the construction dust gone, and able to start with everything functioning and technology all up and operating and everything like that. So it's been a comparatively much better start than last year, although last year went fine too. Got new staff members that have been getting themselves acclimated and getting off to an excellent start so far. Finalizing the construction up front, yeah, just basically the front sign is our last main thing. Our student count at the elementary school is 343 this year, so it's down a little bit from the last couple of years. We had a smaller class, replaced our 6th grade that moved out here, and just with some kids moving out and things like that, and move-ins and move-outs are around that area right now. It changes every day as kids come and go and move in and out. First couple weeks are under our belt, just doing a lot of establishing routines and relationships with kids that's going on in classrooms, and practicing safety drills and bus safety and things like that, gearing up for fall assessments. First early releases this week for staff in service on Thursday. First PTO meeting tomorrow night. We're doing something new this year, Warrior Pride Awards. Every month we're focusing on a different character trait. And using the vocabulary of those terms. For example, in September to start the year, focusing on safety as a character trait, people being safe. Other ones like perseverance and empathy and things like that. So that every month we're using that term, defining to elementary kids what does it mean to persevere and work hard and finish something. And then we use examples in the classroom, tell stories on announcements, give examples on announcements to teach kids about those different character traits as we go through the school year. So that's something new that we're doing this year to try to promote positive behavior. So good start so far.
Okay, the junior senior high school building, it's nice the air conditioning is working. The hot start to the school year, that was pretty comfortable. The new tile work in the hallways done and in, it looks great. We have 3 new staff members also settling in the building. They're off to a strong start. I've heard some good positive feedback about all 3. We also have upcoming safety drills we're going to be doing for bad weather and for fire drills. We're working on some RAP revisions, or we're addressing that with staff. We're collecting some input and looking at what's next for RAP as far as our 8-hour period. We too have early release on Thursday, and we'll be doing some SLO work with the teachers and also doing some RAP revision discussion there.
Very good. No funny stories?
What's that?
No funny stories? Sorry to put you on the-
That's a yes.
Oh, there it is.
You don't have to give cute kid stories from the elementary school.
Sorry to put you guys on the spot. Anybody have any questions? Principals? All right, then we'll move on to old business, item C, update on superintendent search.
And Greg, I'm going to let you do most of that, but the school board met earlier, 2 weeks ago about, and chose the WSB, Wisconsin Association of School Board Search Agency, and met with Roger Fagan, the representative from the WSB, last Thursday. And I'm going to let you guys cover what you went over at that meeting, seeing I wasn't there.
Okay. Well, we met with Roger, and we went over a number of different things. The highlights of what we went over were setting the timeline for the different things that need to take place in order for us to get this hire done. We also talked about the board coming up with 3 community member names apiece to put together the community focus group.
Want to back up and say what a focus group is? Part of the search process involves posting it, obviously, and then putting together focus groups from the community, both schools, and the support staff, getting a group of 8 to 10 individuals together, run through a similar set of questions. What are we looking for in our next superintendent? The board went through that exercise last week. So these focus groups are designed to pull together, and they're anonymous, so we're just looking for ideas. What kind of character traits, what kind of a person are we looking for our next superintendent? So that's what
Thanks,
Greg was
Brent.
talking about.
And then part of the focus groups, one of the things that we're going to be gleaning from the focus group conversations are what questions do we put on the stage 2 or the final interview, so we can kind of hone in a little bit on some of the things that we're trying to find in a person, in the next person as our superintendent. And it's a complete from start to finish with posting it nationally, and one of the fun conversations we had last week was okay, the first posting we put out there, we want to say a couple of good things about our school, and then the second posting, I believe that we get to elaborate on that a little bit. But even just reading through the first posting, which he had worked on, we've got a lot of positive things that we get to throw out there about Clear Lake, and I hope when we're done with this that we can kind of bottle all this stuff up together and put it out for everybody to see, or somehow, so you guys can see, because it brought a lot of pride to my heart, just talking about the fact that we've got a nice park down there, and that we've got our Burley Grimes the Education Center, the elementary is named Gaylord Nelson Education Center, and we've got some history that comes from Clear Lake. You'll get to see it coming up here. I think it was pretty nice. And then we signed the contract with the guy, or with WASB, and put a cap on it. And then we talked about, like I said, posting a little bit. Do you guys have any other things that? It was a good meeting.
Right. Yeah, other than if you want to just maybe highlight like the timeline a little bit.
Would you do that?
Yeah.
Pete, I didn't bring my sheet with me.
Okay. The community focus groups and the school focus groups, there'll also be 3 other focus groups, one with the elementary staff, teaching staff, and then the senior high staff, and then support staff will happen on September 22nd. And then that week of the 21st, there'll also be a community and staff online survey that will go out. And then September 28th will be the stage 2 information posting for the position. The application deadline will be postmarked by October 16th. And then the board will take a look at reviewing applicants and choose interviewees on October 22nd. The first round of interviews will be the 28th and 29th of October. And then background and reference checks completed by November 6th. We'll do a final round of interviews on November 10th. And then final selection by November 16th, so that we can be ready for a start date of January, actually 3rd, 4th, whatever that Monday is. 4th, yeah. So I think it's a real comprehensive timeline that includes all the players in here.
One of the things too, if I could, Lori, can we still get you names for our community groups? I figured we could be a little bit past the deadline. I'll try and get mine in here soon.
Yes.
Can we put that timeline on the internet, on the website, and maybe post it in the newspaper too? Let people know what to expect.
Yeah, it should be in the minutes.
What timeline? The whole timeline?
Sure.
Won't that be the minutes?
Yeah, it can be posted on our website. I just hadn't been given one, so I wasn't there.
Yeah. One thing I would encourage you in attendance, you all in attendance here, that the focus groups are very important. And if you're not part of one of those focus groups, the online There's an online focus group, which are the same questions, very similar questions. Please, we're looking for input. So if you can, please take some time, fill out that online questionnaire. It'd be very helpful.
And I assume, Brent, that will be on the homepage.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's where we're planning to put it.
Yeah, this is the most important job that the board does, so we're gonna see if we can get all the input we can do so we can do this right and continue on the tradition that we have here at Clear Lake. Anything else on that topic? All right, then we'll move on to new business, discussion regarding board member attendance requirement at WASB trainings. Brad, do you want to lead that discussion?
I won't lead it, I'll just go into it. For the people that don't know, at the annual meeting, there was a resolution, motion made that the school board members attend at least one in-service put on by the WSB prior to their June payment stipend that they get. It's split into two. They're paid in June and paid in January. And so that motion was that they attend at least one in-service prior to that June payment to receive that payment, and then one in-service prior to the January in-service, payment to receive that payment. And so to attend at least 2 WSB in-services per year. Those in-services can be evening sessions. There's a number of those that take place around the state, up at the CISA. You heard that at the start that a lot of our board members have gone to the initial, normally I would take board members to the initial WSB orientation for new board members. And so that's something that we encourage people to attend. And then from there, is like I said, the motion was made and seconded and voted on at the annual meeting to continue in service for our board. And so they continue to become educated on the functions of a school board. And so that's what brings the discussion here tonight is what constitutes, what are those WSB in-services? And like I say, as Tom mentioned already earlier, there's a number of things that are sent out by the WSB that school board members get, and I also get as the superintendent that school board members can attend, all the way from the major one is a January conference in Milwaukee that starts on a Tuesday and goes Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. That's a big commitment, 4 days in Milwaukee, but it's an excellent in-service, and I know many of our board members in the past have attended. But again, that's a major commitment. But then there are other in-services that do take place. Like I said, we have them as close as our CISA up at Turtle Lake. We've got one coming up at Trigo here October 19th. And so there are times that the board can attend. And so what the discussion item was, our board is saying, well, I don't want to put words in their mouth. I'm going to introduce or get to that point, and it's up to you guys for your discussion. What do you feel was meant by that motion and that second and a unanimous vote to have board continue training?
Okay.
Well,
Well, I was going to bring up that meeting at Trigo coming up. That sounds like that's a board of boards. Well, it's just members of boards from all around northwestern Wisconsin getting together to talk about challenges facing us.
And there's some
Yeah.
in-service on that night
Yeah,
that the
there's a
WSB
couple of
does.
classes, there's an
Yeah.
election there, and there's...
Yeah, a number of things that take place.
So let's pretend we go to that meeting. What do we have to bring back for documentation to say that we attended the meeting? But, I mean, how does everybody know that we were there? How do we-
Tom, I guess, again, as far as from that meeting, from the annual meeting, I guess what I would say is this here. I think you're all adults here, and if you go to something, you know it. And so I don't think there's any police out there that are going to...
Well, I agree, but just...
There's going to be people come into board meetings and say, have you attended? And, yeah, whoever your next superintendent is in January, when checks are supposed to be cut, if you yourself can say, yes, I did attend, I think that should be sufficient. I don't think there's any police out there about attendance.
Well-
I think you as a board, that's my opinion, and Greg asked for me to lead, so Because that's the way I would handle it, is I would hope that you guys yourselves would take it upon yourself.
It's just easier to ask the question beforehand than it is to,
So
Foolish.
one of the things that in doing a little research that surprised me was there isn't an actual requirement in statute for board members to have trainings, which sort of surprised me. But one way maybe we could handle that, my board chair, because it is a requirement in Minnesota, they just keep track of that. Usually you'll get something at a training, and you give it to the board chair, and they keep that file, and then you have
to sign in.
Yeah, that kind of thing. So that would be easy enough to do with that.
So if somebody did want to check up, there usually is an attendance sheet when you attend. So. If not, you can say, here. And I guess, at least, if it's, if we're, like, again, we're all adults, if we're doing something that's presented by the WASB that we're if you're interested in it, by all means, go to it.
when's the one in Trigo?
October 19th.
18th, 19th, yeah. You can go, I think you can starts at 4 o'clock if there's an in-service at 4 o'clock, or you can get there at like 6, I think, is when the meeting starts.
Perhaps in the spirit of the motion that Randy made that night, the reason he made it was for us to try to become a little bit more educated and try to be, better board members. Maybe when we do go attend these things, maybe when we come back, we could maybe say a few things. Yeah, what did you, what are the things that you learned, and then we could maybe learn from them. And then that'll be that'll be my way of keeping track of it then, if that's my duty as the chair. I think that'll be a good thing for us.
Yeah.
So, well,
I'm
the
fine.
other thing that I talked to someone at the Council of Nonprofits, and they said if you're going to make it a requirement and tie pay to it, you should have it written somewhere beyond just the motion. So in the board member's job description, that it
We
should
should
be
create a
there
board
somewhere in that,
policy.
yeah, and so that it carried forward
Yeah.
and that it was there. So that was a recommendation if you were going to do that, so that everyone was aware of it going into it.
I had a question for Peter's sake, because you're exposed to a lot of stuff in Minnesota, and you're attending.
Right.
I assume you have an opportunity to attend some of these things in Minnesota.
Absolutely, but they're different.
I know where you're
and so
going.
Yeah.
they're different. So I
didn't know if it
wouldn't
would be a
want
benefit or a.
No, I wouldn't want to necessarily
Okay.
say one is good for the other, because it's two different states,
Two
two
different-
different things
yeah.
going on.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So we should put that on the future agenda to make an addition to
Create
our
a board policy.
Yeah.
We'll have to do that under E, so yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Attendance policy.
Any other discussion you guys have about that motion? Okay. If anything comes up, then we can talk about that at the next meeting, then we'll put that on the agenda. So then we'll move on to new business B, review of 2014-15 AIDS certification.
Okay. Each year, by the end of August, the school district has to file with the DPI an AIDS certification, and for the folks out in the gallery, it's a 2-page. And what that is, what the AIDS certification is, it's the numbers of money that we received and spent in the previous school year. Our state aid each year is based on, part of the number is based on the dollars that you spent in the previous year. So you'll hear me, or you've heard me say in the past at an annual meeting, that we put together this budget and we try to spend, yeah, we save and put into fund balance, but we want to spend as close as possible to that number, because the following year, our state aid is based on that number. It's kind of like, it's one of those that if you don't use it, you lose it. And so you want to walk a fine line when you're balancing budgets, things like that. And so what the aid certification is our 2014-15 numbers in Fund 10, Fund 38, Fund 39, those numbers where we taxed, or those funds where we taxed and we spent money. And so this has to be certified by our accountants. They have to send in a similar sheet that it's the aid certification by the auditors, and they have to verify these numbers. So when we receive our October 15th state aid this year, it'll be based on these numbers. And so these have been certified by our auditors already. And again, they've sent theirs in, and so these will be the numbers that the DPI will use for our October 15th aid certification. Questions on that?
This is not an approval item, this is just a
Nope, it's
notification,
for
correct?
information, and then also, because Dave does have to sign as the clerk, so, and this happens every year. Just want everybody to be informed.
Yep.
Was this put on the website too for people to see?
It is on the website, it's through the DPI though, Dave. We don't have a spot on our website, but there's a connection. You can go onto the DPI, look under Clear Lake, under the Winds Network, Clear Lake, and you'll see all the previous years up through this year. So.
Okay. Any other discussion? All right, then we'll move on to item D, discussion regarding district goals.
Nope.
Whoop, I skipped one. Review of 2014-15 district financial annual report to the DPI.
Yep. Next one is a comprehensive annual report. Each year, we as a district have to file a budget report in December. That's our best guess what it looks like for the year, the dollars that we're going to take in and the dollars we're going to spend. We also know our state aid at that time. We have all the numbers. At the annual meeting, some of you were there, and I was saying, hey, that's our best guess right now. Once we hit December and we file our budget report, those numbers are pretty sound, and we know our state aid, we know our student count numbers, those kinds of things. That's what we operate on. We've already got an operating budget in. I've already have that in. But we'll fine tune that once we get all of our numbers, like I mentioned at the annual meeting. Each year we have to file an annual report then based on last year's numbers. And so on 2014-15, we have to file an annual report. This is all the revenues, expenditures, and it starts with a fund balance account. And this is on every fund that we have in the district. It starts with a fund balance from the previous year. That's on record at the DPI. All of the, again, revenue that we get, all of the expenditures that we have, and then we have an ending balance. All those things are on at the DPI. We have to do one as a school district. Our auditors have to do one. And so all three of these have to match. And so this has to be filed by September 18th. I actually filed it back on September 4th. And, but I bring it to the board tonight to review. And as I said, this report accounts for every penny spent last year in 2014-15. I know at the annual meeting we were asked about the auditor's report, if there was any money missing. I don't know how rumors get started, but there was some concern that there was some money missing in the district from last year. This report will dispel that myth or rumor or whatever it was. And again, I don't know how that got started, but people can go through this report also online. Everyone is there for the last 7 to 10 years. It's, again, on the DPI website. Under Clear Lake, you can look at all those. And so I just want to go through for the people here and for the board. The board has had an opportunity, hopefully, to look at this. But again, each fund starts with a balance sheet from the beginning of the year, end of the year, and then it goes on. Revenues, Fund 10, which is our general fund. And again, I don't want to take a lot of time there. I took more time at the annual meeting explaining that. But all the revenues from Fund 10, it goes on to all the expenditures from Fund 10. I got to tell the story. The very first year that I did this for the school district, I was missing 10 cents. And it couldn't be filed. I could not complete our filing from the school district because the DPI had a number, the auditor's number agreed, and we had to find that 10 cents. And so it's right down to the penny, actually. It can't be off. And so again, it's just something that, so going back to it, Fund 10, all the expenditures in Fund 10, and that's obviously our biggest fund at about 6.6 million. It goes on to, I'm still going through Fund 10.
I think we're spending too much, Brad.
Anyway, Fund 27 is our special education fund. It, again, starts out with a balance sheet and then goes on revenues and then all the expenditures in Fund 27, which is special education. Goes to Fund 38, which is our non-referendum debt. Again, a balance sheet, revenue, expenditures. Fund 39, again, balance sheet, revenue, expenditures. Fund 49 was our remodeling, our construction, and again, a balance sheet there. And again, we didn't have a whole lot to spend or any kind of revenue there other than some interest. But again, the final expenditures there. Fund 50 is our food service. Again, a balance sheet at the beginning of the year. And again, the revenue and expenditures for last year. Fund 60 is our funds, our activity funds, and again, same thing with that. Fund 72 is our scholarship fund, and again, balance sheets, revenues, expenditures, and finally, Fund 80, our community service fund, again, a revenue sheet, or excuse me, a balance sheet, revenue, expenditure, and so again, just want people to know that yeah, every penny does have to be accounted for. And I also want to share just a little bit that may be unique in Clear Lake, but again, this is something that I do myself as a superintendent. This is one of our checks and balances that we have in our district. Mrs. Karnick does a lot of the numbers, does the checks and payment of whatever, and revenues in and expenses out, along with Mrs. Nordby. Okay, this I do because this is another check, and they can check on the numbers on here also. But again, these numbers have to match the BPIs. They also have to match the auditors. Okay, and so again, it's just another checks and balances. Lori could do this, Joy could do it, but again, in Clear Lake, this has been done for ages by the superintendent. And hopefully your next superintendent does the same thing. Because again, it is a checks and balance that we use in Clear Lake to make sure where all the money is. And so, again, I just wanted to point that out. It's another form that Dave has to sign that we've gone through. And so, questions on the annual report?
No. Did you say the expenditures are supposed to equal out to the revenues?
No, you got a balance sheet, okay, the beginning balance, ending balance,
Right.
and so then you'll have revenues, you'll have expenditures, and so sometimes the revenues are less than the expenditures, and so you'll see the beginning balance, the ending balance will be less. And so that beginning balance sheet, you'll see on there, Dave, it says beginning balance, ending balance, and now you look at revenues and expenditures, and those numbers match. Other questions?
And it matched this year.
Good. Yes.
Good.
Otherwise, I can't file this report.
All right. Well, then we'll move on to new item, or new business, item D, discussion regarding district goals for 2015-16 school year.
Okay. This one each year is, I look at it as one of the most important discussion items that we have. And we, as administration, take a look at data, and we take into consideration what's been happening in the district, and we make plans for the district as a whole. Again, we want input from the school board. We get input from the community. We get input from teachers. We have in-service committees. We have those kinds of things. But these goals are what we're really working on this year to increase education for the students of Clear Lake. And so with that said, what I'm going to do is allow Chris Peterson to go back and show what kind of data we use to develop these goals. And so, Chris, why don't you fire up your computer there? We'll go through what take a look at the past, just a snapshot from the past. Where do these goals come from? And then share with you from an administrative team standpoint. And then what I would like is the board's input on their thoughts for the goals for the district. And they can be yearly goals, they can be long-term goals.
So these right now we're going to be looking at are a set of the goals from the administration, Brad?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And it's going to be some data from the past 3 years, Greg.
Thanks, Chris.
One of the things I would mention is you're going to see data from 11, 12, 12, 13, 13, 14. As of this point right now, the state, we cannot use the 2014-15 data. It's been embargoed, and it won't be actually made public. We'll be able to use it as an individual school district, but it's, again, it's something that the state has put a hold on as far as using the results from the Badger test last year, because there is no Badger test anymore. They're moving on to something else, and we do not know what that is yet. So, but this is the data that we've had to date, and again, we'll share that with you.
Where's this data from, Brad?
From the state report card. Some of it's from the state report card. The one yellow sheet, Chris will go through that.
So I'll go through. So the thing that I just handed you, this is, some of it might look familiar to some of you because we handed it out last year. Those of you that were on the board. So I want to hand it out to those new members for their benefit. But I'll also so this is summary numbers from the school report cards that have been done since 2011-12.
And you, Chris,
every year,
you got a sample of the school report card?
Yep, so that's the next thing I'm going to hand out here. So I've got the, there's a district level one, it's a summary of the whole district. And then there's a elementary one, and then junior high and high school one. And again, we've gone, a few members that have been here a few years, you recall we've gone over these every year about this time. So how about if I just give you half of them, give you half one, and just make sure everybody gets a copy and pass them along, and I can project them up on the board too, for other people who don't have a copy in front of them. So then what we had done, if you recall, Mr. Smith and I had made a little summary last year showing the 3 schools, and then, can't fit it all on the screen here, but the yellow indicates if the achievement was higher than the year before. And then also you notice on here, yeah, and so the DPI this year in 14, or for last year I should say, 14-15, they're not going to publish state report cards because of the change from the WKCE test, which has been taken for about 20 years. It went to the Smarter Balance test, which was called the Badger test, and there were plenty of issues that went with it as far as execution of it. And anyway, by legislative action, the Badger test was discontinued last spring. And so DPI has been mandated to come up with a new test. There was one portion of the test that wasn't taken because it wasn't ready by the testing company. So the results are pretty, not real questions about the validity of them, and so they're not publishing those results publicly. Later on, we will be able to, as schools, go in and look at our data on the safe site, or on the private, or I should say the secure WiseDash site at the state. We'll be able to go look, but that's why 14-15, there's not going to be report cards published. Let's see. Give an example for. Sorry, it's hard to see my mouse up here on this screen. So here's an example of, here I pulled up the high school report card from last year. So this is what was handed out to the board. So there's a high school one, there's a middle school one, elementary school one, there's a district overall one. And you can see that it looks at various areas of student achievement as far as reading and math. For the high school, there's no score under growth because sophomores are the only ones that take the test in high school, so there's no back-to-back grade to show growth from year to year. However, when we look at the elementary and middle school, you'll see a growth score. Closing gaps looks at students from special populations, and maybe kids with special needs, maybe kids with from ethnic minority groups, kids with free and reduced lunch, socioeconomic status. It looks at closing gaps between those student groups who have traditionally not achieved as well and the rest of the population, so there's a score there. The on-track and post-secondary readiness, that is for high school, they measure graduation rate. For all schools, they do attendance rate. Oh, I'm sorry, that's confusing to me. I thought that was done for all schools. Attendance rate. Third grade reading achievement is on the elementary one. 8th grade, obviously, is on the middle school one. ACT applies to high school, so you see. So it's important to understand, these are not scores out of 100%. These are scores, these are numerical scores. So it's not, there's a complex formula that goes into it. They take all the different aspects of the state test scores and go into it. So it's not a percentage out of 100. That's not what it is. That's not what these numbers mean up here. But it's a score out of 100. There aren't any schools in Wisconsin that achieve 100. So you can see our high school achieved in a very nice area of 78.9, exceeds expectations in this zone right here. Middle school, elementary school have been in the meets expectations area in the last few years. There's the sheets that I gave you guys are two-page short summaries. There's also an in-depth 18-page summary that I just made a few copies of because save a few trees, and they're available to look at online by anyone publicly, and that you can look into much deeper detail as far as what are all the different student groups and what are the specific areas of test scoring. So I just wanted to throw up an example of one of the report cards up here. I could pull up the elementary one. So you see the elementary school in the meets expectations area. But just this is on a real big overview basis. And obviously we go into more detail and depth with some of the things we have access to on the state site. But so, when we look at our reading achievement, we look at that and say, we've got improvement we can do. There are things we're doing well, but we can improve certainly. So that's what we're looking at when our team looks at things as an administrative team, but then also as a teacher team within the building. We look at that and say, okay, let's delve into that deeper. Where do those scores come from, and how can we work to improve those things?
So Chris, on the state site, or you can dive into this, you can actually see what portions of mathematics you need to work on, what parts of reading we need to work on.
Yes.
So you guys can focus in on getting that.
Yep. And this is based on the WKCE test, because this is from 13, 14 still, so that was the last year of the WKCE. So that's a little bit of the tough part now the next few years. This coming year, they're going to have, this school year, they're going to have a new test again. Third state test in 3 years. So it gets a little hard to compare apples to apples, I think, personally. It's a little frustrating to know. Now, did we shed any tears when the WKCE went away? Not really, because a lot of people for years have recognized the flaws of that test, and it's really, but the Smarter Balanced Badger test had its issues as well, and we'll see what the next test is going to be. So, I caution anyone to just look at state tests, but it is important to look at. It's one part. You look at state test data, you look at classroom data, and the scores that teachers are giving, and then you also look at, we'll talk about our STAR data, which is another internal within our school, but it's normed nationally with kids all over. So it's important to look at all three, but and you want to look for trends, multi-year trends with things, whether it's growth, things going up, things going down. You want to look for a multi-year trend, especially in a small school like ours. You're going to see, you're talking about a sample size of kids of 40, 50 kids. You're going to see achievement do this quite a bit in a really small school, but you look for trends over time. So, one thing that was encouraging is our reading growth exceeded state area, or state average, I should say. But again, this is 13, 14, taken in the fall of 13. So really, it's it's measuring 12, 13, so this is 2 years old data, almost 3 years old data. So there's always that lag. That was one of the criticisms with WKC, by the way. So, with the newer online computerized testing, we should have quicker feedback and quicker results back to us sooner. So, and again, we looked at this last year as a board and delved into it pretty deeply. So, questions about this before I just wanted to kind of refresh some of that from last year. And again, this was last year. We just looked at the trends over time. Questions about this sheet that you had in front of you, or anything like that? Or
What direction are our trends heading, Chris? Can you?
well, like I said, we highlighted in yellow the areas that were higher than the year before. So, there are some good things here. I mean, our high schools got some, exceeding expectations, and you can see some continued growth there the last couple of years, which is nice to see. Middle school, kind of a mixed bag. And again, some of that I attribute to, look at the overall score kind of bumping up and down there. Some of that you can attribute to the small groups of kids. You're talking about only 190 or so kids taking the test every year, so you're going to have some variation. Elementary school, again, you can see some small growth there. But again, it's pretty old information actually already. So, but we just wanted, to emphasize that, just one example of a place we look for information. And again, we can delve more deeply into it, or we do internally, we do that. One thing that I'm being fairly new at the elementary school, having the switch of testing, I wish some of the things we're doing, I guess I kind of wish I could watch to see apples to apples comparisons every year, and hopefully we can see some growth. But now one of my fears is that we're changing the test, and I'm hoping that the hoped for growth that we do, I hope it shows on the state test. So.
And as I told Chris, though, when he made that comment at our admin meeting, we do have our own personalized. In other words, and Chris will get into that, the STAR data that we're tracking grades, we're tracking kids in district that you guys purchased here a couple years ago, and so we have that data. And so where we're going with all this is, okay, the goals that we have for this year, where did they come from? And so you understand that. So go ahead to your next part there, Chris.
So anyway, so a little bit of background there. I guess I've done that already, so before we move on. So some of you might recall last spring too, I did a little update on the school-wide Title I process and some of the things that are involved with that. And so I'll put up here our reading goal that we set, our school-wide committee, which I'll get into later what that is, but 80% of students, this was a goal set for the elementary school, 80% of students at all grade levels meet benchmark by the end of the 15-16 school year, as demonstrated on the STAR and PALS assessment. So the STAR assessment is, again, that's a Renaissance learning thing, and I'll get into that, that you purchased a couple of years ago and we've been using. And the PALS is a test for junior kindergarten through second grade. And benchmark, again, means 40th percentile and above. So it doesn't mean passing at 40%. It means 40th percentile. It means, compared to other students who take the test. So. Questions about that? Back to the reading goal? We did, we looked at the same thing for math. Where does the 80% come from? It ties into RTI, response to intervention, or response to to instruction, which I'll touch on later. But if your goal is to have 80% of students at benchmark through universal instruction, meaning the basic instruction, the overall general instruction that occurs in the classroom without any supplemental help on the side. Okay, so that's where the 80%.
Is that what you're talking about, benchmark? Is that, you're describing that's what I was gonna
Benchmark
ask you
meaning,
about.
yes, meaning 40 percentile or above on the STAR test. Questions about that? That's where the 80% comes from RTI. So, so what have we been doing to try, we go back to those state report cards, and as a principal or as a principal team, administrative team, we look at that and say, okay, what can we do to improve our reading scores, our math scores, our curriculum and instruction. So just put together, here's some of the things that we've been doing since for the last 3+ years. And some of these you, as a board, have had a direct hand in. Some of these have been purchases and things that we've come to you and asked for, and you've supported. So, but we had a new textbook series, and I've got slides where we can kind of go into what these mean. But some of the new, again, this is a state test. This is the test that you've purchased for us. Not school-wide title, but school-wide Title I. Sorry about that. Catch that one. School-wide Title I. Talked about with that, I'll talk about what this means, what the non-negotiables were, RTI, some of the in-service and professional development we've done with staff, day-to-days. I can delve into what all these different things mean. But sat down with or talked about it with the staff last spring and a little bit this fall, and kind of made a list and said, been doing a lot of things, which is good. So I'll just kind of quickly, and now I can talk about any one of these slides for a long time if you wanted me to, or I can talk about them for a short time if you wanted me to. So you tell me when to, I can move along faster, or if I'm getting to, or if you have more questions.
I'm curious about the non-negotiables you came up with.
There's a slide.
There's a slide coming? Okay.
Yep. So yeah, like I said, I could probably, some of the slides could be a long time themselves, and so you guys can tell me.
I don't think the Viking game starts till 9 tonight.
No.
I'm just kidding.
Semi-pro team?
Oh.
There's a Viking game? Anyway. So Lead 21 is the reading series that was purchased for the elementary school. So that was first year of it was my first year there. So that was a steep learning curve for me too, and trying to help the staff. I didn't implement it, the staff did. Trying to help them implement that. It was radically different from our prior reading series, but key points of it, lots of differentiation. In other words, the kids do whole group instruction, but then they also have leveled readers based upon the reading level that they test at. But the leveled readers all cover the same topics or content, so they can come back together as a group and all still discuss the same things. But, Brent's book that he was reading might be a little bit different than Greg's book, but they cover the same information. They just might have different words that are at a higher level or a lower level. So, plenty of assessment that goes with it. That was one of the challenges for the staff, or has been, is weeding through what are the most effective assessments that came with it that we should use or not use. And I don't know, probably some elementary teachers here that Jess doesn't use it in JK, it's kindergarten on up, but they could tell you, that was one of the, like I said, the learning curve of that new series. And it follows the workshop or daily 5 model, which is where kids they do whole group instruction, but then they break off into groups. And it's a very powerful thing for the teachers to establish. It's hard to establish, but when they do, it's very powerful. You have kids in different stations around the room, rotating around, read to self, read to others, writing, word work, working with the teacher in small groups. So the teacher's with one small group in the back of the room, and then the other groups are rotating around the stations. So it's a powerful model. It's hard to implement, so we've been working towards implementing that better. So, questions on that before I move? Sorry?
You must have to have one person in each group to get it initially started, Chris, huh, or no?
Well, it's the teacher spends the first weeks training the kids on, okay, when you go to the word work table, here are the things that are okay to do and not okay to do. When you go to the read to self table, here's the expectations for what you do at the read to self table. When, you know, read to a partner, here's where you can sit when you read to a partner, you know. So there's a lot of setup that goes with it, and it's especially kindergarten, first grade, second grade, they do really a lot of just establishing the routines and that, and then the hope then, and what we're starting to see is after a few years of doing it, now the kids know the routines, so now they start second grade, and well, they've been doing it first and kindergarten, so the language, they've heard it before about, oh yeah, I kind of already know how to act when I go to the read to self table, or the read to self area of the room. So, but yeah, it's hard to establish, and it's giving ownership to the kids and leadership to the kids as young as kindergarten and first grade, which is pretty neat to see. PALS testing was implemented in, you can see, first kindergarten did it in 12-13, then junior kindergarten and first added on either side of it in 13-14, and last year second grade also added it. So this was something that was mandated by the state back in 11-12, put in place in 12-13. Phonemic Awareness Literacy Screeners, what PALS stands for, but basically it's screening young kids to see if they have basic skills for basic reading skills. Yeah, early literacy skills. Thanks, Jim. And they're just starting that right now, actually, this week, first graders.
So, and Chris, you take that information, or teachers take that information, and they can be specific with a certain student. Okay,
Yes.
this student needs.
Yes, and it's done in the fall, winter, and spring. Actually, fall and spring, the winter is optional for some of the grade levels. STAR testing, again, this, you've heard us refer to this a few times now. Okay, so this is, Renaissance Learning is the name of the company we purchased it from. But this is a computerized test that students take in the fall, in the winter, in the spring. It's called a universal screener. So universal meaning all kids do it. A screener meaning it tests where they at benchmark for reading and math. And it's computerized so that the test only takes 15 to 20 minutes for most kids. So it's leveled, so they answer a question, they get the question right, they get a tougher question. They get that question right, they get a tougher question until they get one wrong, then they get and it zeroes them in. The technology zeroes them in so that in a fairly short period of time, you can find out what level they are at for reading and for math. So 2 different tests, reading and math. We started doing that in 13-14. So that came out of when we, 12 and 13 at the elementary school, my first year there, we were looking at RTI and we said, you know, we need to have better data, we need to have the universal screener, came to the school board, came to Mr. Aaron and the school board and said, this is something that we feel strongly we need to do, and it was something that we were able to purchase, so it's helped us immensely. It's a big stride for us when we started doing that. School-wide titles, you've heard me talk about that quite a bit the last couple of years. And so Title I is the federal program that's been around since the 60s to help kids with reading and math who need additional assistance. We were a targeted school. We switched to school-wide. We were able to do that because one of the reasons is because we hit 40% free reduced lunches, which allowed us to apply for school-wide. So if you recall some of what I talked about back then, some of you, that instead of grade levels being prioritized and targeted as you get Title I assistance, now it can be more fluid, and the interventionist, the Title I interventionist, can fluidly change the groups of kids from quarter to quarter or each time the universal screener is done, and bring the assistance to whatever grade level, whatever kids it needs to be. It used to be that you targeted certain grade levels, and then you know, if third grade didn't have a lot of kids who needed assistance, for example, third grade wasn't one of the targeted grade levels. Well, maybe there's only 2 kids in there who need assistance, but boy, if they really need assistance, it was pretty inflexible. So we did the planning year in 13-14. We had a consultant from CISA 11 that helped us with that. Created a committee for leadership oversight. So, and then this committee remains, and this committee then provides the oversight year to year to year on what we're doing and monitors it. So it involves data analysis, setting goals, coming up with strategies to improve, and then helping to use your goals to then plan your professional development. And then along the way, you look at your data and see, is it making a difference? So there's a process put in place. So at the time in 13-14, we were doing the construction project, and I was kind of thinking, man, one more thing. Do we want, because we hit the 40% mark, and we said, well, we can do this if we want to now. And it was like, oh boy, because it's a big process to go through. But it was really a good thing to do, because instead of being one more thing, it kind of took everything we were trying to do and coalesced it into a more unified and more focused effort. So it's really been a benefit to me as the principal to help focus efforts in the building. So questions, comments about that? You guys have heard about that before from me, I know. But, so then one of the things that I knew you guys would want to see these. So one of the things that the title or the school-wide committee did, and also with input from a math and reading committee that we had going too. But as part of that process, we came up with non-negotiables, meaning consistencies at all, and we would say all teachers are going to do these things at all grade levels. So there's consistency from classroom to classroom and grade to grade. So we agreed, everyone's going to work towards using the workshop model. Inquiry projects were part of Lead 21, our new reading series. And we said we're going to do an inquiry project at each grade level at least once per quarter, minimum. And then working towards writing, which reflects the state standards.
An inquiry project is?
Inquiry project is where it's not a product that you produce, it's a way of thinking. And so again, it's giving a lot of creativity and ownership to the kids. So they form groups. They'll start out with a whole group instruction or lesson, and then about maybe a topic or whatever the theme for the unit is. And then the students are in groups, and then they can actually come up with a question, a guiding question that they want to then create a project around. So, what are some types of animals that live in the savannah in Africa? Might be I don't even know if that's a good inquiry question, because that's too close. But I'm on the spot here. I can't think of a good one off the top of my head. But basically, they come up with a question that they want to research, and then the kids look for information about it. And then they use their class as a resource and things that the other classmates know. They use the books and the things that the unit that they're doing for sources of information. And then also they actually, they're looking online and looking at different information sources in the school. So, and then they put together a project, and then they display or show it to the rest of the class. And it might be one time it might be a poster board, another time it might be a presentation, or it might be a game or a activity that they have their classmates do that shows what they learned and helps them learn. So, again, it's not easy stuff to do. It's not, as a teacher, it's not easy to just say, well, figure out this inquiry thing and do it, implement this, because it takes a lot of groundwork and it's a way of thinking. So that is some of the stuff we've had some of the professional development to come in to help us with that. And we need to do more. We need to keep doing it. So we came up with all, there were all those assessments that came with Lead 21. So we said, well, let's make some agreements so we have some consistency as far as what assessments we're going to use. And I won't bore you with the details of what the differentiated and weekly benchmark assessments and all that, unless you want me to.
No.
So math non-negotiables, this was not part of our title, our school-wide title, but we didn't have to do this. We just focused on reading for that first year or two. But we did create math non-negotiables. Oh, you know what we did? Yeah, we did put it as part of our school-wide plan. We actually did. But we have a math committee and helped come up with this. And these are more vague. They're not as specific as the other ones where you're going to do this every unit and so on. But that was intentional. We said we're going to bite off not too much. We're going to focus a little bit more on reading. Math, we're going to have some things we need everyone to do, but we weren't quite as specific with math. And then the big thing was last year, we started using a new textbook resource last year, and that's gone very well, and I think is making a positive difference already
You said it's made a positive difference.
I think.
What is that, his personal opinion? Or
Well, that's,
just-
I've got some charts or data charts I
Okay.
can show you at the end, and did some good things in math last year. It's
Yeah.
only 1 year, so let's see, but,
Mhm.
but, you know, it's accelerated math and the new math series, so it's kind of seeing some growth
It's
there.
feeling good?
I hope so, yeah, it's 1 year, I hope it keeps, seems like it's going in the right direction right now. Early returns.
Mhm.
Let's see. RTI, response to intervention, response to instruction. This is like a half-day presentation here to talk about what RTI is, but anyway, it's a approach to use in the classroom. Students do a universal screener. You assess where they're at compared to academic benchmarks for reading and math. And then many students, again, normally, ideally, you want to have 80% of your students achieving benchmark with universal instruction, meaning the regular instruction that all kids get. And then there's also then selective interventions and intensive interventions for students who may be kind of on the verge of not being at benchmark or just below benchmark, and intensive interventions for those students who are well below benchmark. And so then these are things that are done as supplements in addition to help students to try to catch up. It also, when you really got things rolling with this, is for students who far exceed benchmark. You can also give interventions to those kids. So doing things for that student who is, you know, really off the charts, what are you doing for that student to differentiate for them, to challenge them and get them to think at the next level? But this spurred a bunch of our reform work, as it says up here. It's why we bought STAR. It's why we've made the push to go to school-wide title. It goes hand in hand with that. Last year, we worked on a handbook, which I have yet to share with all of you, and that's a future plan. There was a committee, a group of teachers that worked on that and put in writing and codified all the things we've been working towards doing, all the things we've been doing. And then, what else was I gonna say? Oh, something else like that. Lost my train of thought. Other questions you guys have about this? Some of the professional development we've done, again, some of it came out of the school-wide process too, to say, okay, these are our goals and things we're gonna call non-negotiables. Then you gotta turn back and say, okay, if we're gonna tell all the teachers you gotta do inquiry and do use workshop model, then we better support them and make sure they know how to do it. So we've done some training with that, a couple of different things. We've had people come in, we've sent people to workshops. We will continue to do more. And we did a staff survey this past winter, and that's the feedback is, yeah, they still need more help with that, still need more growth with that, and that's okay, that's normal. We did some training on how to do progress monitoring on the STAR system. Progress monitoring means, so you have a student that's getting interventions, then you track them every week to 3 weeks to see, okay, is the intervention working? Are they starting to grow? Are they starting to catch up? So that's what progress monitoring is. Assessment literacy, what that means is knowing more about assessments and what assessments do what, and what kind of assessments are appropriate. Like we did some assessment literacy tonight. We talked about state tests, STAR tests, classroom tests, and the difference between that. That's just knowing different things about assessment, building the staff's knowledge about that. Using the Title I network, Mrs. Shoup, our Title I coordinator, attends those meetings, and sometimes other members of the team go with her. Done training on depth of knowledge. You can see in math, things we've done. When we adopted accelerated math, we did training, sent people from the math committee to different workshops. When we adopted expressions, of course, we did training on that from the company. The math, couple members, Mr. Rosine and Mr. Dow, put out math challenge questions every month for the school. So it was a school-wide math challenge. And it was one that young students and 6th grade students could all address and tackle. And then they showed the different ways the unique ways that they found to solve the problem, and then we posted them and displayed all the different ways to solve the same problem. And again, more of the depth of knowledge training on how to do performance assessments. This was a new thing that was part of that Badger exam. So, questions about any of this? Once your eyes glaze over too much here, move along quicker here. We got some new math texts last year, again, math expressions last year at the elementary K-5. This year, currently, new math resource, which you purchased this summer, which you recall doing, I'm sure. So that's moving along here. Accelerated math we've used for a couple of years. And then this year and this summer, you probably recall me coming to you saying we'd like to add these products here. So actually had a team of teachers do some training today on this. And at the elementary school on our early release on Thursday are going to share that with the staff and do in the computer lab, get everybody going on accelerated reading. So, STAR early literacy is just STAR testing, STAR reading test for kids who can't read yet. Had different leadership committees going on, RTI committee, a literacy committee, a math committee, a school-wide leadership committee. Right now, it's kind of too many committees, and what we'll end up doing is we'll kind of combine some of these into the school-wide, but I felt like initially we needed kind of different groups to be focusing on different things, and I think as time goes on, the RTI committee will kind of fold into, when you're talking about reading and math, you're already talking about this stuff anyway, so eventually that'll kind of, we needed that group there to work along and get that workbook, or get that handbook accomplished. So, just want to note the people who've been part of these. So, Mrs. Shoup is the Title I coordinator, and then she had a long-term sub last year, Mrs. Nevin, who was a retired Title I reading specialist, who was a great addition to our staff last year as a long-term sub. And basically she did some work with us later in the year, came back for a few days here and there to work with Mindy as a consultant to help us through that process of our first year of going school-wide. So, but there's pretty much a member from each of the grade levels on those, along with myself. RTI group, Mrs. Jacob Checks, the school psychologist, Mrs. Shoup from Title, Mrs. Powers from special ed, and then a couple of different classroom teachers, and then myself, and then they did all the work though. And then school-wide committee is again Title teachers, school psych, special ed, classroom, representatives, myself, and then Chris Rangel from CISA helped us during the transition year. So just again want to give credit to all the people who've done a lot of hard work and put in a lot of time to try to make a difference. So. Okay. Now, Mr. Gillis wouldn't really be fair to him to 9 days with building with kids and teachers. So just kind of recapping a little bit. I mean, the junior and senior high has been doing a lot of the same, implementing STAR math and reading testing at the same time, implementing accelerated math. Had a couple teachers working on a math grant where they're doing some professional development outside of school, and then the summer on math practices. Did a lot of work a couple years ago on developing a better writing rubric for the grades 7 through 12. RTI work, moving in that direction with ways to use RAP at the end of the day as a means to that, and doing more progress monitoring based on. RTI is harder at the high school. You don't have all the sources of data on reading and math like you do with elementary. It's harder to do. And so there aren't a lot of schools out there that you can go and just say, hey, show us your model. How do you do RTI here? At least that I'm aware of. I mean, there's a lot of high schools that say they do RTI, but they probably aren't really. It's a tougher process, I think, to get going fully at the high schools. But that's one of the things they've been working on and continue to work on, and then continue to do curriculum alignment in both buildings too. So. Mr. Gillis is going to have some stuff that he'll add later as far as future, ideas and goals and things that the high school staff's going to be working towards. This was a huge step for us. Last year, we started And this was Mrs. Nevin. I got to give her a lot of credit. She was, again, that long-term sub who worked with us and worked with Mrs. Shoup. And we implemented these last year as part of the school wide process, and it's a really powerful thing. At the end of first, second, third quarter, bring together teacher teams. So we would hire a couple subs, and then so all the first grade teachers would come into the room with reading specialist, myself, school psychologist, and we'd put up data sheets up on the board, and we talk about things, and we sort things, and we talk about interventions that they're doing and what they need help with, and things that are going well, things that are not going well, looking at all the STAR scores, the classroom test scores, things like that, and it was really powerful. I think the first time we did it, I think the teachers were kind of leery, like they're coming into this room with us, like what are they going to do to us, or what's this going to be about? And I think after we did the first one, and I think everybody walked out of there going, wow, that was pretty neat. And then so we had 3 of those throughout the year last year, and we'll continue to do that. Let's see, I'll go back. This is, I can just show you in a couple of examples. Not going to put any, obviously took all the names off of here, but here's an example. So we can look at, say, whatever grade you want to pick here. We're at 6th grade right here. So then we'd put up all these, the teachers would submit all this data that they've collected, and then Mrs. Shoup would help compile it, and then we'd look at all of the different things, the STAR scores from the previous spring, from the fall, from the winter. I just pulled this up, it was from last January, so it doesn't include the spring screener. Then it's got some of the unit test scores, WKCE scores, which we didn't spend a lot of time focusing on those because they're very superficial, don't tell you a lot, but Badger scores, which we didn't have last year yet. So again, spreadsheet for all the different grade levels, and what reading group are they in was one of the sources of data. How are they doing on their quizzes? What are their STAR scores? So you're not just looking at one thing, but you're looking at a whole picture. So just to give you an idea of the things that we were looking at. So there was reading, and then we also had it for math as well. Let's see. Let's just pull up, see what the 4th grade. STAR scores and unit scores and everything. So again, numbers aren't going to mean a lot right here. Just looking at those, but questions, comments about the data stuff or the spreadsheets that we used, or questions or comments about that? But that's what we're using to say, what do we need to improve on? We talked about this. There's no report cards from last year because they're not going to use those Badger scores publicly. They don't feel like they're valid enough. And then again, coming this spring, we're going to have another new state test, which we don't know what it looks like yet, but we do know it's going to be computerized again, or it's going to be online, like the Badger test was. So, just pulled. This was a different slide from our year-end title parent meeting, and just pulled up our goal from last year was also the 80% benchmark, and we hit it in some area. In math, we hit 80% by the end of the year in all of the grades. In reading, we didn't quite, but we could see, really nice growth. So this is percentage of kids who are at benchmark in the fall and in the spring. Percentage of kids at benchmark in the fall and spring. So you can see, we had some nice growth in a lot of the grades, but yeah, we didn't meet our goal in reading, so that's why we need to keep, looking at that while we're gonna achieve it. So.
That's it?
That's it, sorry. That's all I can do. So as far as, let's see. Anything left to, what other questions or
we've got a lot of data out there, we've got a lot of information, you're sharing it within the school with the teachers, the administration, down to the teachers. And we've got our spreadsheets up there that, our teachers know what their kids are doing. How does that get out to our parents?
Good question. At parent-teacher conferences now, the teachers don't just talk about the grades in their grade book. In fact, they talk less about that, but you'll see teachers handing out summary sheets that'll have a lot of the, I guess I can't flip back to the slide, but a lot of the information that's on those Excel spreadsheets right there, they'll show that to the parents to show, well, here, their star score, they were at this percentile. Here's how they're doing in their classroom work. Here's the reading group that they're in. And so that's the kind of conversations that happen at parent-teacher conferences. And, we do really well with over 90% of our parents participating, so that's a good question. It's become less important at the elementary school to talk about what their grade is. It's the grade, but also all this other information.
The growth.
Yeah, the growth, and how are they doing compared to, if my child is a second grader, okay, how are they doing compared to what a second grader should be doing right now?
So that STAR tool is kind of huge.
It has been huge, yep, huge.
So Chris, on that note, and maybe just kind of on this process, we tend to lead with the state tests on when we do this kind of stuff. And you said yourself, and I'm fully in agreement, and even further down that line on what the value or lack of value is on a lot of that. I think we need to highlight that growth data, the classroom work, the other things that we're doing, and show the importance of that, because the state test is a snapshot, and we tend to lead with that, and we tend to have that as what we want everyone to see first, but it really doesn't, we all know it doesn't give us nearly what the rest of this does. And I would just say that, maybe we need to put that where it was on your last chart there, the last column there, because, and particularly now, I mean, the fact that last year's test scores maybe didn't have any validity whatsoever, and we don't know what the next ones are going to be. I think just shifting that perspective to let everyone know, there's a lot of real positive things there. And when you look at, you look at that first one there with reading with 73%, you could say, ooh, we didn't make the goal. But from 39% to 73%, that's huge growth in 1 year's time. So those are the kind of things to be highlighting.
Yeah. And that, I agree with you. And I think, the state tests are a macro view of, and I think you look for long-term trends there. And I do, I agree with you. And I don't want to throw them out totally though, because, you look at, okay, it's still comparing, how are we doing compared to the state? It means there are other schools that are doing better. So what can we do to get there? But it's still one page, and that's why we've got to look at all of it. We've got to look at the classroom data, we've got to look at the STAR data, and we've got to look at the state data. You're right, and unfortunately, the state data is the easy headline that gets thrown out there first. And you remember the headings up there was exceeds expectations, meets expectations, and so on. And it's become a political football. And so next year, it's not going to be those. It's going to be 5-star, 4-star, 3-star, 2-star school. So you're a 3-star school, or you're a 4-star school, or there was for a while they were talking they wanted to make them grades A, B, C, D, and F, and so, but it's going to be 5-star, 4-star in the future instead of meets expectations or exceeds expectations. That is what it is. So.
Has a question, Chris. Do you ever compare what we're doing we're X, with the schools that do the best job in the state and see what they're using for tools?
Yeah. I mean, that's what, working with the CISA consultants, they're good resources to say, what's out there? What is everyone doing? Because they are out there, And it's also like the networking things that we go to. There's CISA principal networks that we go to. There's groups of high school principals, like the Lakeland principals meet every month, and they talk about stuff like that. And the CISA 11 principals, there's a group that meets monthly or informally, and that's what we do. We sit and throw out ideas and say, all right, what are you guys doing for, this thing? And it might be things as, managerial things like your bus routine that you do, but it might be, what are you guys doing for what kind of interventions are you guys using for reading in your school? And then we go to the ASA conventions, the state, school administrators convention, that's where you go pick up that stuff too. Hey, what's the best practice out there? What are people doing? We'll listen to the schools that are really doing it and say, okay, what are they doing and what can we learn from them? Good question. What else? I know Mr. Gillis also had some things that he was gonna, as far as.
And we'll get to that.
goals, or are you talking future goals? I guess?
Yeah, and that's where I wanted to go with it, Chris, is we wanted to give the board and our people that have joined us tonight just an understanding of how do we make decisions on where do we want to go. And obviously, we want to continue with math and reading, improving those areas. That's not just it at the elementary or at the high school, but that's been a focus over the last 2 years, and we want to continue and follow that through. So that is a couple district-wide goals, is improvement in math and reading, not just at the elementary, but at the high school also. And so, again, the things that we've done over the last 3 years, Chris just showed you. We'll continue to focus on that, and what will we be doing over the next 2-3 years in those areas. And we'll talk just a little bit about that, and we'll keep implementing what Chris has shown you there, and also at the junior, senior high school. But, okay, it's not just teaching math and reading. There's more that go into our school-wide goals. And so with that said, Nick, why don't you jump to the high school, and let's go there a little bit.
Well, first off, I'd like to thank Brad and Chris for trying to get me up to speed on a lot of different things in the last 9 days. It's been crazy. Chris covered the STAR reading and math for the high school level, and I'm just getting my fingers into that now and discovering where we're using that. We do have the new math curriculum, grades 6 through 8. One of my focuses in these first few days has been working with teachers in the RAT period. We're looking at different ways where we can use that as a concentrated effort. So specifically, we've been working in middle school this last week. We met a couple of times to find out ways to organize kids by color group to get them more intense, smaller group instruction to help get up to speed. Especially with our incoming new 7th grade, the teachers already met this morning with me, and we were picking out certain students and helping them, getting them into groups where they can get help with organizational skills. The first year, beginning of the year stuff, that's not going well already. Timeliness, getting to class, those kinds of things. I'd really like to thank the middle school team for their dedication on that. That was a really good meeting this morning, helped me get to know some of the kids and the staff. As a future looking direction, as a team, we've been talking about different ways where we'd like to be able to engage our local community and industries and make those personal connections between school and community, school and industry, whether that's through setting up an internship, some kind of a work-study relationship with employers in the area. And we'd like to even further look at a possible advisory committee with the school district and with those businesses and industries, so we can have a more formal direction from the community as far as what we should be pursuing with those different kinds of kids. I miss anything?
Yeah, we want to bring them into the schools as much as possible. And we have had some of that happening in the past, but that's a direction we want to move this year and incorporate that with more effort. And so be something that you'll see.
Another direction we'd like to pursue is more personalized learning as we move forward, meeting kids where they are, finding things they're interested in, helping them focus their learning. That's fairly new to me. It's something we're going to be working through as a building and talking about it in upcoming in-service, and hopefully find things through CISA where we can have more training on that and a more focused effort in that direction. Technology integration in the classroom. Obviously, we have some pretty strong technology in our building. We made some big investments there. It'd be, I would be amiss if I said I understand what every teacher's doing in the classroom. I don't know yet. I'm getting out and visiting classrooms, seeing what they're doing to integrate that. And then it'd be nice to get together with, as a staff, using our in-service time to start focusing on what are the directions we're going to go with our technology, what are teachers doing, and where can we support them further as far as using that technology in the classroom. Lastly, Chris brought up the RTI handbook that he developed for the elementary school. I'm not sure yet where George was with that, and I'd like to pick up with that and start moving in a direction to have a formal RTI handbook for our building, similar to what he's developed for the elementary school. Anything to add? That's pretty honest right now. 9 days in.
So how's your first 9 days going?
Awesome.
You find your office yet?
Oh, yeah.
Good.
Red's check regularly to make sure I keep coming back.
Can't always find the top of the desk.
It's great to hear that you're getting out in the classroom. Keep it up. Thank you very much.
So that brings us to, I don't know, Chris, you want to add something, but,
I
okay.
gotta put a plug in for, told the elementary staff, you saw all the things that have been going on up there. And then I gotta put a plug in for them. They did all that and they've been working on all those things in addition to packing up their classroom, moving it, being dislodged, some of them in different times of the year, repacking their classroom, moving it a second time, some of them, starting the school year last year a week late and unpacking their room again a week before the school year began. Dealing with a lot of, move-in students last year, adding, early childhood back to our school last year, adding wraparound kids care. There's just a lot of things that's been going on, and I'm just really want people to know how hard the staff has worked, and despite all those challenges and some of the adversity of the construction project and movement and the noise and the disruption, whatever, positive attitude and, good atmosphere in the building and keeping good relationships with kids and with each other. And so I just want to say I got to compliment the staff on all that's going on.
So from their presentation, continued math and reading, personalized learning, technology integration, engaging the community, having the school become the hub of all our local businesses, including technical schools. That's our goals for this year. And I guess what I'd like to say, open it up to the board. That's a chunk, and that's the direction we're heading. But what do you guys have to add?
I know we've kind of started talking about integrating out into the community with businesses and our local business environment, and this is kind of just the first shot across the bow. But we've got, as we go forward, I'd like to continue hearing about that regularly from you as to what exactly we're doing, because I go out and visit the business and say, hi, I'm the new principal, or what do we have going? So I'd like to get maybe some because it is so new and kind of infant. It's hard to put a goal, a hard. You must do this to get to this. So let's keep that an active goal and something that we report regularly.
And every year we have this meeting and we talk about, goals and there's so much distance between last year and this year, and there'll be so much distance between this year and next year. I remember some of the things we talked about last year. I can't remember all of them, but maybe if we could revisit this and maybe put it on the agenda again, just to kind of see, well, how's that going? Let's revisit the things that we talked about and see if we can help in any way, if some things need a little bit of help or what have you. But to keep the goals fresh in your minds, I'm sure you guys do it. That's your job, but they won't stay fresh in mind if we don't plug it in the future.
Springboarding off of that, Greg, can we do this after we get the new hire in and kind of reassess where are we at for benchmarks and see where our goals are, so that the new guy kind of comes in with here's where we are, here's our goal, see how you guys are doing for the first half of the year? Would that be something we should put on in a January meeting? Something like that? Can we do that?
Yeah.
Will you have some data for us at that time?
how does, we have a new superintendent come in, he's gonna be like, he's gonna be like Nick, and he's gonna be learning, and I don't know how we'd go about that, if we actually did it structured at a meeting, or if we took different aspects of the things that we wanna visit and plug them in as we go. I'm just throwing that out there.
I'd like to have a meeting.
To see what you guys think.
See how I'd like to see our numbers. Because we should have some pretty good data after the first half, I would think.
Are you talking on the reading and the math?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Have a
I'd like to see it too.
data day?
Well, that's, we'll have those, like say every quarter, we'll revisit those things and look at the spreadsheets. I don't know if halfway through the year what we're gonna see, but if you look at, fall to spring, you see, fall to winter, you see definite changes, for sure.
That'd give us an excellent opportunity so the new guy would know where we are. And this would be a great conversation to have at that time, I would think,
Yeah.
the new person.
You had talked earlier in the meeting, Chris, about something you were doing weekly with the kids, personal.
Oh, about monthly,
Monthly word to the
Warrior Pride, we're calling it, yep. Just instilling a different, talking about a different character trait each month, And it's a small thing, it's not a huge deal, but just a small start on it. Something like that. Again, just trying to promote positive characteristics, positive character traits in kids.
You'll hear the acronym PBIS, Positive Behavior Intervention Systems. Well, it's kind of an offshoot of that it's not a full-blown system, but yet it's...
Well, I just want to comment, I think that's huge. I think that, so many things happen in people's lives that if you're not reminded of different things, time just keeps going by, so I think that's huge. We had put on the agenda talking about goals and stuff, and a lot of the goals need to be driven by the administration. You guys are looking at the data, you know it needs to be done in education, but at the same time, from the board level, there's different things that the individuals would think that would be a good goal. One of the things that I'd been thinking about for the last week since this was on the agenda was exactly what you're doing, Chris, is plugging in those types of things. The one that came to mind for me was leadership. How would we foster leadership in our kids as they go through? What kind of plugs could we put in for leadership? And then I was listening to the radio when I was working the other day, Amory Station, I think it was, or maybe it was Balsam Lakes, and I hear Unity's got a commercial on how fabulous their school district is. And I thought, well, there wasn't much of a message there. What's their school selling? What are they going to make their kids into? And I thought, well, then that kind of mulled into my leadership thing, and I thought, well, maybe we should talk about some things that we want to district-wide plug in where we could advertise, hey, if there's any leader in your kid, we're going to bring it out of them, or what have you. So that dovetails, that can kind of delve into a number of different topics, but I just wanted to throw out that's one of the things I was talking about, or thinking about this last week, was to just throw that on the table and see where it goes.
Well, that's an excellent point, Greg. Brad's told us quite a few times that we're sending $372,000 we got budgeted for kids leaving our school. So we're in a different age now where Turtle Lake is advertising. In my mailbox, there's a deal for Amory schools. This is why you got to come to Amory schools. I went to a movie in Richmond. The first commercial out was why to go to Amory schools. So I'm glad to hear we're focusing on the reading and the math. I went on the DPI website and just did a quick, how are we doing? So I looked at Amory, Clayton, Clear Lake, Glenwood, and Turtle Lake, kind of our target area where we could perhaps retain some of that, and get that back into our school, because they're not going to drive a long distance. And I compared our school and seen just how would we compare with that small group. In social studies and science, we're number one, no question. So that was fabulous to see. Unfortunately, Language arts, reading, and mathematics, we're dead last. So what are we going to bring? How are we going to sell our school? You know, you got to come to Clear Lake because exactly what you're saying. We got fabulous facilities. How are we going to sell to mom and dad that this is the place to go to get an education? The teachers that are doing the science and social studies, they get one heck of a pat on the back here, I think.
What's the database, what's that all based off of?
This is a 2013-14 year. This is obviously, as we've heard, 14-15 isn't in. And just right off the DPI website.
That the
But
scorecards
what's it
themselves?
in? Reading, math?
Social studies, science, language arts, mathematics, and reading. You know, and they give the percentages and how many kids are advanced and proficient. So it was, we can debate on what the test, you know, the validity of the test and such like that, but everybody's got the same, every school would have the same argument. You know, so that should put everybody kind of back on the same page. It's a litmus test, we get that, but going off of what you said, how do we capitalize on that and get these kids that are already here to come here? What are we not offering? So I think I was really happy to see we're talking about reading and math. That's a definite Achilles heel in the program.
And we've been talking about reading and math for a number of years now and made quite a few changes to what we do in reading and math. What are the things that we changed 3 years ago even, and then 2 years? We've done a lot of changes over the years. What have they been, Chris, that?
All the things we just covered, you know? I mean,
Those things that we just implemented, those
we're-
two big long lists in math and reading. And so that's why we're continuing, Greg, this next year is, that's why it's a focus is, okay, you implement something the first year, chances are you aren't going to see results the very next year. It's going to be 2 or 3 years down the road, and that's where we're at is, okay, now with some of these things that we've implemented 3 years ago, okay, and we're starting, going back to this sheet right here, as far as at the elementary, all these yellows mean there's been progress over those 3 years. But can we take it to the next level where these are all meeting expectations? Can we become a school exceeding expectations? And which our high school is. Our high school went from higher exceeding to almost whatever the very top category is. And so that's what we're tracking. That's why it's still a focus. And we would continue to make reading and math a focus.
And I'd like to just go back to my first point about the state testing. We seem to make that the first point, but if you survey parents, it's way, way down on some of the things that they're really concerned about. And so some of those other things, Tom, that you were talking about, like you see on the thing at the theater, I've seen that too, is really talking about what's the whole package that you have there. And so I just want to caution a little bit that focusing too much strictly on test scores when there's a lot of research out there that doesn't support where that takes students into their, after they graduate from high school and what they do with their lives and things. And so on a state level, it's the big litmus test, and I just don't think it's the be-all and end-all that we should be, putting out there. We should be looking at what are all the other kind of quality issues that we have to offer for students. And so if we're going to move down a line of how do we promote and market the Clear Lake School District, that wouldn't be the first thing I would want to be looking at. I would look at all the co-curriculars, and I would look at all the programs, and the small school and small class sizes and those kind of things would be far ahead of what I would do, and I think that's where you would attract parents also. So,
Co-curricular, we're actually doing really well.
absolutely.
Yeah. We have a weakness in one of our co-curriculars. So that's something we should probably look at further down the line. But overall, as far as our sports co-curriculars, we're par or better than most every school out there.
Greg, I know it's getting late, but I just wanted to quick guess, Nick, one other thing. You talked about technology integration, and last week when we met, you were talking about some of the bring your own device kind of things. I know we're not budgeted into this year now to do it, but what's the kind of the moving forward, talk about, maybe not one-to-one, but where are we right now on the amount of technology, specifically computers to student ratio, and kind of what's some of your thoughts with that moving forward in the junior high school?
Well, I'll answer the part as far
There
as
you go.
the numbers and so forth. As far as the numbers, whether it's desktop or whatever, I mean, at the high school here, having 3 labs of 25, 30 computers each, I mean, that's 90. And then having the carts that we have here, as far as laptops, whether it's in special education rooms or available through the library. And again, it is a bring your own device. Now, it's a matter of where Nick said the integration of all that stuff into the classroom. It's one thing to say, okay, here's the equipment, but now how are we going to use it? And so how are we going to integrate it with each child? And so that's the direction, I think, Pete, that we're focusing on, that we'll be focusing on is in whether you have a one-to-one initiative. I don't know if you need to have that to integrate technology. If you have it in the school, which we do, we got to just use it and teach kids to use it.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
helped you out there, Nick.
Thanks. And just to answer your question a little bit, Peter, I was kind of a tech geek at Spring Valley, and along with the kind of a Google head, and not that Google's the answer, but that along with the other different ways to integrate technology. So I've been watching emails. I get a lot of emails from companies who are advertising that they're training your teachers, that kind of stuff. And we're trying to sort through to collect a direction together so we know where we can focus our efforts more and get people to training to advance that kind of stuff.
And as we move into, particularly with the high school, about the idea that technology is a part of their world and powering down when they get into school, and so sort of defining what does that bring your own device look like, and where and when, and expanding that potentially, I think, moving forward is something to really discuss for your team to kind of figure out what does that look like.
I just had just a side note, a story. I was just working with one of our high school teachers, or one of our new hires as a matter of fact, and we were talking about ways to use technology to do a quick review. And I brought up that Kahoot is a cool app on a phone that students with devices or desktop computers around the room, so everybody can participate on an equal level. And she implemented one already and gave it a shot, and she said, fantastic.
It's really neat.
But that's just one small example of the things that we can find and put to work almost immediately without a lot of training.
Right.
To plug our, Greg and I's occupation, when Mr. Weiss was here, he'd bring out a bus, load of kids 3 times a year. And we'd walk them through the farm and show them some things, because in our industry, we're desperately short of veterinarians. I mean, and that's the big picture. And I was hoping that we could get back to that, where we could get some bus tours and have the kids come out, see where their food is produced. We always get the smell thing.
Throw a few tires on the pile for us.
We really need to dovetail that in, but on a serious note, we'd love to inspire some kids to come on out and see,
That's part of that industry.
Absolutely.
That's a huge industry here.
And that's, I mean, there's a lot of things out there that we can do on our individual industries that, perhaps we can inspire somebody that wants to go and take that on as an occupation. Because you and I, we're pretty much the last generation.
Hopefully not. I'm still making babies, so I hope somebody will take over for me. Chris, you had made the comment. You had plugged in.
Future farmer?
Chris, you had plugged in or made the comment that one thing they're looking for a question for the kids. They would use the resources in the room. They'd ask the kids, and gather. But then you also said, then the kids actually go online and ask that same question. So they're actually forming questions, and then using technology to answer it. And that's a huge step for a kid that age. That's something that I'm still training myself in my life, that, you know, if I don't know the answer, all I have to do is type a question into the computer and get an answer.
Right, and when I was talking, I had in my head, I was thinking of like a first grade classroom, and you know, obviously I don't want to give everybody the impression that first graders are all just, you know, spending their whole day on the computer, Googling or whatever, but they do, you know, some. And then obviously the older kids, 5th, 6th grade, yeah, they're using technology a lot to do their research. And like, absolutely, I mean, it's just part of life.
Right.
And I'll just say this here, as far as technology, whatever it is, 5 years, 10 years from now, it's going to have already changed. We've got to teach kids creativity.
Yeah.
Okay, we're teaching them how to use this, but okay, the next device that comes along, whatever it is, as long as they have the skills to read, to write,
Lifelong
to
learner.
be able to, okay, I'm going to take this thing and make it do whatever, they'll be ready for the next level of technology, so.
I just have kind of a, and you tell me if I'm wrong, but I know we're all very proud of our parent-teacher conference attendance at the elementary school level at, you know, 90+%. How can we bring that up and maintain that at the high school level? Because I don't think we're at 90% at the high school
No.
level. And if there's one thing that will consistently show, if you can fix one thing at all that will help a individual student succeed, it's parental involvement. How can we help and encourage our parents to stay involved past elementary?
Oatmeal raisin cookie, that gets me every time.
But that's, I mean, I think that, and I don't have an answer. I mean, I think that would be huge. And it's not just parent-teacher conference, it's.
There's a ton of.
And Brent, that's a question I would pose to many of the people in our audience. I mean, they're here because they're interested and so forth. But yeah, if people have thoughts, ideas about that at a junior, senior high school level, we've talked about scheduling just like we do at the elementary. Elementary, you have one teacher. At the high school, you have 7, 8 teachers. Is that something that can be done? Or if there's another way, or something that, again, as far as from parents, what they would like to see. So we've often kicked that one around.
Yep, I know.
We haven't solved it.
Yep.
I've read studies, that's the third leg of the stool, is parental involvement, what they do in the school, what they do outside of the school, and then if the parents are involved.
Yeah, oh,
It doesn't seem
absolutely.
to matter if it's music or any of their studies or anything, that's,
Because we offer a great education, but if a kid goes home and gets shot down every night, that makes this job awfully difficult. So,
Okay. Well, that's the direction we're heading for this year. And as far as reporting back sometime at the midpoint, we'll leave that in the hands of the two principals. And but it shouldn't be a problem. And I think they're goals that again will make the district stronger and a better education for our students. Again, I'll come back to that philosophy of our school district. We prepare kids for, if they once they graduate from Clear Lake, if they want to, they'll be able to go on to a 4-year college. They'll be able to go on to a technical college. They'll be able to go to the world of work, or they'll be able to go to one of the services. And one of those 4 categories is what we aim to try and encourage all students to go to. And when they graduate from Clear Lake, they should be able to. And again, I'm going to come back and pat the district on the back. Over the last 35 years, I've seen that happen. I've seen kids go to MIT. I've seen kids go to Madison. I've seen them go to New Richmond. I've seen them go to work. We've done a good job of it. We need to continue to try to improve on all those areas. And so, again, a kid that walks out of here, I'm going to piggyback on what Pete already said. education at Clear Lake is not just about the classroom, it's about the total education a child gets. It's about the values Greg was talking about. It's about the problem-solving skills they learn, whether it's in the drama club or the football field. It's about those working together skills. It's not just one area that is education in Clear Lake. It's all those areas together. Look at the big picture and what does a graduate from Clear Lake come out with? And that's what I'll hang my hat on comparing to any other school district. The job that they're, the education that they got, not just academics, but the total picture. And that's something we all can be proud of. And with that, you can see where we're heading this year. We'll move on to the next category.
Sounds real good. So then we'll move on to E, future agenda items.
Board policy. I suppose we better tackle that one, huh?
Is that one
The-
motion for the board members?
Yep, attendance. And I think, Tom, with that, not just the attendance, but as far as expectations of a board member,
Yeah.
and that's one of them.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, is that where we plug that in? That's
Yeah.
probably a good
Yeah.
spot to
I
put
think
it.
so. I'll try and gather some information and get something to you.
You know, there's a lot of work thrown on our administration's labs. There's plenty of work put on our teachers. With this item that I'd like to throw on the table, I'm hoping that we don't have to throw much work on their laps, but, you know, we just talked about grabbing the kids that go to Amory and the kids that go to Turtle Lake and grabbing the kids.
Now, I am
Yeah,
going to
there's-
put a plug in, Greg. We do have more kids coming in than going out.
Okay.
Anymore,
Well,
so.
That's good, but when you hear your Unity and you see
Yeah.
the movie theater stuff,
Yep.
maybe we should put on the agenda talking about that subject. Do we need to go out there, and what do we need to, you know, when we talked about the different things that Clear Lake possesses, the, you know, the tradition and the job well done year after year after year after year, and the positive things that Clear Lake has, I think we need to send that out.
Yep.
That would be a great discussion. So we should go over our website, you know, in comparison to other schools, you know, see what we can do, because when people click on Clear Lake, what's our website look like? You know, they probably won't go to Facebook first. They'll probably go, you know, Google us up like I do quite a bit. But, and see what the content of that is. It's one of the things that I personally miss is seeing all of our sports teams and their coaches and all their pictures. I miss that. You know, so it's not on our website.
Yeah, let's circle that all into.
That'd be
into
kind of fun to
that.
talk about.
And-
Ways we can promote our school district.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And with what are we gonna promote it with? You know, what emphasis, where do we wanna put the emphasis on?
Mhm. Fun discussion.
Any other ideas, guys, on anything we wanna put on there? If you come up with anything, just give me a phone call and we'll, get it on there and move forward.
Sounds good.
Hats off to all the teachers and the administration for the beginning of the new school year, and you guys are doing a great job. So, if there isn't any more discussion, Brent?
I move to adjourn.
I'll second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes, we are adjourned. Good meeting, folks.